In my last video, The Source is Flawed, I showed how, with Protestants, their interpretation is the final authority in their faith, in their morals, and in their doctrine. In their religion, sacred scripture really is nothing more than a trampoline on which to bounce off their own private interpretations. In contrast, Pope St. Gelasius I, in his dogma, Errors Once Condemned, Not to be Discussed Again, he says, "What pray permits us to abrogate what has been condemned by the Venerable Fathers, and to now reconsider the impious dogmas that have been demolished by them? Why is it, therefore, that we take such great precautions lest any dangerous heresy, once driven out, strive anew to come up for examination again, if we argue that what has been known, discussed, and refuted of old by our elders ought to be brought up for discussion again? Are we not ourselves offering, which God forbid, to all the enemies of the truth, an example of rising against ourselves, which the Church will never permit? Therefore it's written in the Scriptures, do not go beyond the limits of your fathers," in Proverbs 22:28. "And ask your fathers, and they will tell you, and your elders will declare unto you," Deuteronomy 32, verse 7. Imagine a basketball game where the game concludes, one team wins, the other team loses, and the losing team says, "No, that didn't count. Let's start over again from 0 to 0. That's basically what's happening. In Mark chapter 7, it says, "And the Pharisees and the scribes asked him, 'Why do your disciples not live according to the tradition of the elders, but eat with hands defiled?' And he said to them, 'Well did Isaiah prophesy of you hypocrites, as it is written, This people honors me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. In vain do they worship me, teaching as doctrines the precepts of men. You leave the commandments of God and hold fast to the tradition of men.'" Here we have the Pharisees trying to override an already established doctrine of God with a new tradition that didn't fly with Jesus, and in the future it didn't fly with Pope St. Gelasius I. So when we get to someone like John Wycliffe, who said, "If a bishop or priest is living in mortal sin, he does not ordain, nor consecrate, nor perform, nor baptize." Or John Huss, when he says, "No one is a civil master, no one is a prelate, no one is a bishop, while he is in mortal sin." But Pope St. Anastasius II, almost 1,000 years before Huss and Wycliffe were even born, had already dogmatically defined this issue in saying, "For if the rays of that visible sun are not stained by contact with any pollution which they pass over the foulest places, much less in the virtue of him who made the visible sun fettered by any unworthiness in the minister. Therefore then this person has only injured himself by wickedly administering the good, for the holy sacraments which was given through him held a perfection of its virtue for others." In other words, the holiness of the sacraments is held up by the righteousness of God, not men. This game has already been decided, but Huss and Wycliffe wanted to start over again. And the whole foundation of the Protestant rebellion is to contradict what's already been established as correct doctrine, start over again. They want to start the game over at 0-0 when it's already been established who won the game.